Welcome to this week's edition of In the Clubhouse with EMD Baseball. I am Andy Kirikides, joined by my wonderful co-host Keith Glasser. How we doing?
Great. How are you?
I think we had a slight technical glitch there, but we're going to move on. We're doing it live, so we'll move on. Topic of today's discussion. Topic of today's discussion. We'll unpack this here in a second, but the recruiting process is the process of elimination, not the process of accumulation. And I think a lot of people get this backwards. Now, and we'll preface this conversation with saying that this comes with getting interest, right? There are kids who are going to go through this process who may not have the luxury of being able to sort through a bunch of different schools, right? But fundamentally, the goal isn't to see how much interest you can get. The goal is to find the right fit. And that does not mean accumulating a bunch of things to sort through. It means honing in on schools that you're interested in and making decisions that allow you to whittle that list down to schools that you're legitimately going to make a decision on. Coach, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's a little bit more nuanced than I think a lot of people want to kind of admit, right? You have, because it's a warm and fuzzy feeling when people start recruiting you, right? Like you get that first one or two phone calls, you get a visit or two under your belt, and people start to, really show a lot of interest, and it validates the hard work and the sacrifice and the stuff that you've done to this point for what it is that you ultimately aspire to do, right? And I think you can very easily get caught up in the, wow, this feels really good and it's validated. What else can I get? And we start going down a path of finding any and all schools that may be interested, regardless of where they are, regardless of the academic profile, regardless of the coaching staff, whatever it might be, in an attempt to get as many offers, if you will. And I think ultimately try to leverage them against other places, which, if I'm being completely honest, leveraging other offers against other schools is not the best practice, and it's not really going to move the needle a whole hell of a lot. Because it's, you're not comparing the same kid, you're not recruiting the same type of kid, you're not recruiting the same position, it's a different profiled school, whatever it might be, right? So like, if I'm at RPI and I hear that, if you come in and tell me that you got an offer from Vassar, like that doesn't really move the needle for me at all. Not because of anything really baseball wise, but like it's two different schools. One's a liberal arts college and one's a STEM school. Like those are two wildly different things. So it's, I don't necessarily think that's not to put Vassar down and Coach Skelly or anything. It's just a simple little exercise in what I'm thinking right now. But I think that you can get lost in the trying to accumulate all of these offers, thinking that that's going to help you in the long run, when realistically it should be going about the visits and the offers that you do have and figuring out whether or not those are places that you can legitimately see yourself being at and programs you can see yourself being a part of. And it's okay to leave a visit and be like, hey, I don't think that this is the place for me. And that's fine. You'd rather know now than in October after you've started school and you've been there for 2 months and you're like, yo, this is not the place for me. I don't like it. I don't like the school. It doesn't fit for me, whatever it might be, right? You'd rather know early. But I think it's a very narrow line that you can walk between trying to accumulate offers and understanding that going on these visits and talking to coaches and doing these things are more so based along the lines of you figuring out, is this a place for me? And conversely, the coaches are trying to figure out if you're a fit for them, right? Like you're going to go on that visit, like they might walk out of there and be like, hey, I don't think that kid's going to be a really good fit for us. And they might move on afterwards. And that's just the way that this all works. So it can be a fool's errand trying to chase down as many offers as possible because it's empty at the end. And I think the other side of it is it kind of shows that you have no real plan or idea that you're going about in your process, right? If we're just trying to find any school that could potentially like me and offer me, like there's no real plan there. There's no real, if we're basing it off of things that don't necessarily matter, then you're getting away from what actually matters for what it is that you want to do, right? Like if you're looking at a school that, what you're looking for is an opportunity to play early, an opportunity to develop a winning program and culture, and, you're looking at places, based off of what conference they're in, you're getting away from what actually matters to your entire process. And you're ultimately probably going to make the wrong decision in where you go. So like you want to stay true to what it is that you're looking for out of your recruitment process, out of your college experience, out of what you're getting in the program, all of those things. And I just think chasing down as many offers as you could possibly, attain is not necessarily the best. I mean, we've had many guys that we've worked with on the consulting side of this who have only gotten one or two offers early and made their decision because that was the place that they knew they wanted to go. They felt comfortable. They loved the coaching staff, and it's worked out wonderfully for them. So like it's not necessarily about trying to get as many offers as possible. It's more about finding the right fit so that you make the right decision to go in a 4-year window to be able to go play college baseball for your career at the right program, at the right college that fits all the things it is that you're looking for your process.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a lot of really good points there. And a couple of things I would add is when you go and see a couple schools, there's schools that you've targeted, and this kind of goes back to having a plan, right? This conversation doesn't mean as much if you haven't really executed a plan and you've just got some schools who've reached out to you and they like you and they're showing some interest and you're not really sure if you should be interested in them or not, right? It's a little bit of a different situation. But if you walk in, you have a plan, you're looking for a specific type of school from an academic perspective, from a financial perspective, from a geographic perspective, and you get some interest from schools that fall into that category. I think the big mistake that people make is like, well, I've got 3 really good options. Can I get a 4th? Can I get a 5th? Can I get a 6th? Instead of really peeling back the onion on 1, 2, and 3, right? Because at the end of the day, guys, they misconstrue interest with actual want, right? A couple phone calls, the guy sees you play, gives you a little feedback via text message. That's some interest. When somebody really wants you to go there, which is a huge piece of this puzzle, and I think it's something that a lot of families need to really consider, is that you want to go somewhere where you really want it. And to get fleeting interest just so you can have interest doesn't make a ton of sense to me in this process. You start to get some good interest from a couple schools and you go on campus and you like those coaches and they're ready to make an offer to you, regardless of what the level is. You need to bear down on those schools, because I think a lot of people fail when they think that the next offer is going to be the better offer and they don't focus on what's right in front of them. And if you have a plan and you're attacking the schools that are of interest to you and you start to get interest from these schools, you don't need to deviate from that plan just to make yourself feel better about getting a couple other phone calls or maybe going to visit another school. Like, focus on what's in front of you, focus on the people who really want you on that campus. And I promise you that at the end of the day, you'll come away with a good decision. But I also think when you get a ton of interest, it makes the decision-making process a lot harder because you got to sift through a lot more stuff, right? So at some point, no matter how you slice this, you have to eliminate schools from the process. And you need to make sure that you're eliminating schools for the right reasons, right? If you go on a campus and it's the right academics, it's the right coaching staff, it's the right location, it's the right price, right? Just because it may not check one other box, right? Maybe it's Division 3 versus Division 1. Right? Don't discount that as a part of your process, because at the end of the day, if you want to go compete for something, you want to be somewhere that's really, really wants you to be there, because your experience is going to be so much better than getting fleeting interest from another school and, kicking the can down the road or potentially burying an opportunity, because at some point, some of these coaches are going to say, hey, man, we're moving on to somebody else. Right. And that's the last thing you want. You want to make the decision that that school is not the right fit for you, not hold on to this stuff so that these guys can tell you that you're not the right fit for them.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest one, right? Like eventually coaches are going to, if you're just accumulating offers, eventually coaches are going to be like, hey man, like I need a decision. Sometimes it's going to be, pretty early on in the process of like, quote unquote being deadlined where you have to make a decision. There's going to be other times where, hey, like we're not going to deadline you, but like understand, we might call you back if we don't hear in a month and tell you that we're going to offer a handful of other guys. And if they have, if they take it, we might not have a spot for you. Because, if they're going to sit on, their top 1 and 2 arms and they're not going to make a decision, they can't afford to let their 3, 4, 5 on their list go away and go somewhere else if 1 and 2 eventually say no. So, there is a time frame involved, right? And it's going to vary program to program and coach to coach, but understand that like if you're just in the process of accumulating offers, you could be left at the end with legitimately only 1 or 2 of places that you might not really like because you were more focused on just trying to get as many as possible. And it's again, I'll use the term, like it's a fool's errand, because you're trying to just get as many, I almost equate it to like getting likes on Instagram or X, formerly Twitter. How long we have to say that for. But it validates, what you say on or post on social media. It validates what you've been doing instead of legitimately trying to figure out whether or not that's a place that you want to be at and could benefit you from a playing and development standpoint over the course of your college career. And look, like the elephant in the room is that the landscape of college baseball has changed. We've talked about it on here ad nauseum over the course of the last 2 years. Like, there are programs out there that are using the transfer portal as a tool in the recruiting process of like, hey, if you come here and you develop, like we're okay if you jump in the portal. And that's, it's something that coaches are using to kind of say like, if you come here and you become really good and you want to get in the portal, we're all right with it. That said, you have to hold up your end of the bargain. Like you got to go in and you have to be good and you have to develop. And if you don't get to that point, then that's the place that you have to be comfortable with for the next 2, 3, 4 years. Not just, hey, I'm going here for 2 years and then jumping ship and going somewhere else. But, that some coaches are being a little bit more upfront about it in the process. But I also think that they are being transparent of like, hey, we're going to do the best to develop you. But if you end up not getting to that point, like we expect that you're going to be here for 4 years. So like that's kind of the elephant in the room conversation when it comes to some of this stuff where, you can do it all you want, but on the same hand, the portal is a real thing and coaches are recruiting out of it. They're well aware of it. And, not to say that needs to factor into your decision-making, but no, I think this generation and what we'll see over the next couple of years is far different than what you and I went through, and a lot of people our age and maybe a tad bit younger than us that didn't have the free transfer rule, right? Like you have kind of a little bit of a security blanket where if I did make the wrong decision, I can jump in the portal, but you have to weigh all options, right? Like you want to make sure that you're going to a place where you can develop and do those things. Like, you want to make sure you're going to go to a place where you're going to actually play. Because it's going to be uber hard if you try to jump into the portal with 1 1/3 innings pitched and a 10 ERA. Like you want to go to a place where you're going to develop, and if you end up, popping, and maybe you outgrow where you're at, then you have the ammo and the leverage to be able to get in the portal and find somewhere to go. But understand that if you don't, it's going to be really hard to get in the portal pitching at a 20 with 4 innings pitched in your career and more walks than strikeouts. So or 12 at-bats and, 15 punch-outs, which is hard to do in 12 at-bats, but you get what I'm driving at here. So I think that it's, that you have to be on the field, and you want to be able to find a place that is going to be able to do that for you, but understand that, at its core, you want to be making a 4-year commitment to where it is that you're going, and be comfortable with that coaching staff, with the school, with the program, with all the things it is that you're doing, so that you can try to go, compete for championships and do those things. And I think just trying to accumulate offers to say that you have as many offers as possible is not necessarily the best way to go about doing it.
You bring up a good point about the portal, right? And we were talking about it a little bit before we got on. There's 5,500 kids in, it's less than 500 kids committed. If you're going to go into the portal, you want to go in because you've outplayed the level that you're at, the school that you're at, not because you made a bad decision. Because if you go into the portal because you made a bad decision, it's going to be hard to find the right place after that, right? Because to your point, it's really tough to get recruited in today's game if you haven't proven that you can compete at that level once you get there. So, don't focus on how many. Focus on the quality of it, right? Not the quantity of the offers. Have a plan for what you're targeting. If you're getting interest from the schools that are targeting you, focus on those schools, right? Because it's kind of the better's fallacy that the next role is going to be the better role. You're going to get a better result on the other side of it. And I can promise you, whatever phrase you want to use to talk about it, the grass isn't always greener. The next role isn't going to be a better role. Focus on the schools that really like you. Do your due diligence on those schools, and don't worry about how many. Worry about getting it right, right? And you said it off the jump. We worked with guys that have ended up with 2 offers, but they were offers from 2 of the schools that they really wanted, and they were able to make a really good decision, and they're super happy with everything that they're doing in school. They're playing for a good coaching staff. They're getting the degree that they want. They didn't need 8 or 10 offers to get what they wanted. And I think a lot of people get confused by that. So anything else you want to add here, Coach?
No, sir.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. Tune in next week. We'll have another hot topic for you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for listening this week. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and smash that like button for us. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at EMD Baseball. If you want to find out what me and Keith do to help families and players navigate the recruiting process, go ahead and check us out on emdbaseball.com. Take a few minutes to check out our new online academy. I promise you'll get some good information out of that. Thanks again for listening. Check in with you next week.